Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this planet Earth, and welcome to our SETI Live. Today we have a very special SETI Live with a lot of hosts. So let me explain that we are going to talk about the 40th anniversary of the SETI Institute. SETI Institute was founded in November 20, 1984. Some of you remember this time, by Thomas Pearson and SETI scientist Jill Tarter. The goal was to basically provide a place for SETI researchers to grow their research, to search for life beyond Earth in the universe. So let's fast forward this, and now we have a SETI Institute with more than 100 researchers all around the world, and an education and outreach program, a very robust one. And to discuss this, to discuss the past, the present, and the future, I invited two eminent people from the SETI Institute. Some of them are my bosses, so let's be careful today, okay? So let me introduce you the president and the CEO of the SETI Institute. Hi, Bill, how are you?
Hey, Frank, wonderful, great to be here, and yeah, fun to have this topic to cover today.
So Bill Diamond, you joined us like how long? When did you join the SETI Institute?
9.5 years ago, so it was June of 2015, so June of 2025, we'll have another party.
Okay. And then we have the SETI director of the Carl Sagan Center, Nathalie Cabrol. Hello, Nathalie.
Hi, Franck.
Nathalie, you are in your office at the SETI Institute, I'm assuming, right now?
I am here, and I have been at the Institute 2 months less than Bill. I mean, in this position.
Okay. And joining us, the well-known SETI astronomer and co-host of the Big Picture Science, Seth Shostak. Hello, Seth.
Hi, Franck. How are you?
I'm good. Seth, you are listening to the ATA right now to find aliens?
You know, well, nobody actually listens to the ATA, Franck. That would be really rather boring, listening to many millions of channels of white noise. But it is monitoring the heavens. And if ET happens to transmit during the course of this event here, this SETI Live, you know, by tomorrow, there'll be big newspaper headlines.
That'll be big news.
And joining us as well, we have our the longtime board of director member, Andrew Fraknoi. Andy Fraknoi, sorry, how are you?
I'm fine. It's very interesting to think that of the original board members from 40 years ago, I'm the only one left. It's a great honor and responsibility.
Okay, well, that's perfect transition for my first question. So the SETI Institute was created, as I mentioned, 40 years ago. Do you remember this time, Andy? Can you tell us a bit about how it was?
Yes, so this was a very interesting beginning because at first it was a very quiet start. A key person in the story of the Institute is a legendary figure in Silicon Valley, Dr. Barney Oliver, who was in many ways the father of the personal calculator, the pocket calculator. And he took a great interest in SETI, and he suggested that the most efficient way to support the search for life in the universe would be a nonprofit organization that would support scientists doing the research. And out of that thought came the SETI Institute, and here we are 40 years later.
All right. And you, Seth, when did you join the Institute?
Well, I think I've been here longer than anybody else on this call, except for Andy. I joined the Institute, I'm not quite sure, I think it was 1998. My first experience with the Institute wasn't actually working at the Institute. It was to make a video for them about SETI. And then after that, they said, you want an office here. And I thought it was good to get out of the house.
So, Seth, you, what did we form the SETI Institute? What's the main reason for which Jill Tarter and Tom Pearson created the Institute?
Tom Pearson had experience at San Francisco State University, and he recognized that by having a nonprofit, there were various advantages, organizational advantages. In the end, there would be financial advantages, but that wasn't really the issue back then, because at that time, SETI was a NASA program. So money wasn't, I mean, we knew where the money was coming from. So it wasn't a matter so much of raising the money. But in the end, it turned out that that was a brilliant idea, not just organizationally, but it gave the Institute the flexibility to actually go out and raise funds for our work once the NASA SETI program was canceled.
Okay, and Andy, you joined as a board member right away. How this happened? Did someone come to see you and say, hey, we're going to create an institute to search for aliens?
Exactly. And the person who came to see me was actually Dr. Frank Drake, who is in many ways the godfather of the enterprise we're talking about. He and I had known each other in another astronomy organization, and he wanted someone on the board who knew about nonprofit management and also knew about education and outreach. And I happened to meet both of those qualifications. So we got the board together. There was only 4 people on the board. Frank Drake was one of them. And we immediately launched this nonprofit, as Seth said, which came in incredibly handy because when a grandstanding senator canceled the NASA SETI program for political showboating reasons, here was a nonprofit ready to receive the equipment and ultimately some other kinds of funding and carry on the search for intelligence in the universe.
Okay, so we have people joining us from Athens, Greece, from Georgetown, Texas, from New York, USA, and other places. So we are talking about the SETI Institute today, and we are talking about the 40 years anniversary of the Institute. So initially, the nonprofit was created to search for intelligence, right? And this mission has evolved over time. Not all of us are looking for intelligent signals. Nathalie, can you tell us a bit like what happened over the past 40 years in the evolution of the mission of the Institute?
Well, 40 years ago, I was still at the Observatory of Paris. So I came about at the same time as Seth, actually. I joined the SETI Institute in 98, September 98. So we were here about the same time. And I think that when I arrived at the Institute was probably the time where we started seeing an evolution in the population of the scientists at the Institute. And it was, and let me pedal back a little bit, because when the Institute was started, I mean, Jill and Tom already had the vision that it needed to be more than, SETI for intelligence. There was already embedded in the first cooperative agreement, I think, something about exobiology. So the seed was there already, but it started to really spring in the mid-90s towards the second half of the 90s. And then people like me were not astronomers, but are astrobiologists or planetary geologists or people interested in exploration or astronomy, like galactic astronomy and other things. They joined the Institute, and the rule was really simple. I mean, Andy mentioned Frank Drake. We have the Drake equation to actually lead the way. For me, when I am reading CVs of researchers, I'm looking at what they are doing, and if what they are doing are helping our mission. And so it's the search for life in a broader sense. We've come from looking for the search for extraterrestrial life to searching for life in the universe. And of course, SETI is very much part of it. So it's the root, it's the heritage of the Institute, and the whole Institute has blossomed into what I would say is probably a very unique, it's hard to say only today, but a very unique institute where you are searching for life from its origin to intelligent advanced civilizations.
No, thank you. So Bill, you came at the Institute 10 years ago. You took the helm. I mean, it was, I will say, joining the Institute 10 years ago, the Institute was very different. We had already 70 scientists. We're doing astrobiology, and we had the ATA and so on. So I would like you to tell us why you joined the Institute. That was not a planned question, but I think it would be great to hear your perspective, since you are the youngest one in this group in terms of joining the institute, and what you think has been the most significant contributions over the past 10 years.
Sure. Well, yeah, I wish I was the youngest one on the call. That's not the case, but in any case, yeah, I've been here for 10 years versus the others who are on this call, which I think also speaks to a bit of the culture and nature of the Institute, that people who have joined the Institute, stay at the Institute. We call it the Hotel California because you can check out anytime you want, but you can't leave. So it tends to be a place where once people come and are part of this community, whether it's on the science and research side or the support teams or education, et cetera, they tend to stay. And that's one of its most, I think, wonderful attributes. But the SETI Institute at the time, I mean, it was interesting. When I joined the Institute, the discovery of exoplanets was brand new and really not very well known. Most people had never heard of the Kepler mission, which reinforced the initial discovery through radial velocity of planets beyond Earth, which only happened in the mid-90s. So here it was, 2015, and the Kepler mission through 2009 to 2012 really taught us that planets are ubiquitous, but it still is taking time for word to leak out. I think a lot of people still don't know that, but when you look up at a star-filled sky at night, you're actually looking at solar systems, not just stars. And so that was, this was something just unfolding at the time I joined the Institute. There were many organizations that exist today that are doing similar work to ours, not necessarily SETI per se, using radio and optical telescopes, but astrobiology and planetary science and so forth, many more than there were, when I started. And SETI itself as an endeavor has taken up activities on radio telescopes now around the world and is, operating at a level that it has never before functioned at, really becoming a global endeavor. So a lot has changed in the last 10 years. I wish I could take credit for it all. It's not the case by any means, but it is really interesting to see how things have transformed. And in terms of your question about what is perhaps the most transformative thing or biggest development in the last 10 years, I would say it is this discovery of the ubiquity of planets, which is now, confirmed and scientifically accepted fact. And that's extraordinary. It's game changing because, now imagine an endeavor to look for life on planets when you don't even know that other planets even exist. So there was kind of a leap of faith there. I think astronomers had a pretty good sense that planets are probably plentiful, but there was no proof, no evidence. And so SETI as an endeavor was undertaken at a time where you didn't even know there were targets to look at. Now we know there are billions of targets to look at, and just in the Milky Way galaxy alone, potentially tens of billions of habitable environments, not unlike Earth. So, that's extraordinary new information. I call it, the new Copernican revolution. It's as revolutionary to me and profound a discovery as Copernicus teaching us that, the Earth went around the sun and not the other way around. And I think that discovery has also transformed the search for life in the universe from a side question of astronomy, astrophysics, and space science to the question, the central question. And for example, today, the third question in NASA's lists of research priorities, number one, how does the universe work? Number two, how do we get here? Number three, are we alone? So the are we alone is a central part of NASA's science mission at this point. And that wasn't the case when I started here. So it's a very, very different time. And I think that this discovery has also generated much more public interest in and support for this idea of looking for life and intelligence beyond Earth. And I think there's a general growing feeling among the public that, we're not very far away from making that discovery.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to this far away in a few minutes. Nathalie, you mentioned something about the uniqueness of the SETI Institute, and Seth, you can feel free to chime in as well. It's an institute with this kind of interdisciplinary approach. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. The Institute is a home of about 100 researchers, as you said, 70 affiliates. So we are a good crowd now. And if you want to organize those scientists into scientific domains, we have astronomers and astrophysicists. We have astrobiologists. We have people who are looking at missions, planetary mission and exploration. Others, and Bia was mentioning this, exoplanets, and we have the SETI group. So we have really a range of disciplines, but within those disciplines, we also have many different expertise. We have people who are doing, lab work, and some are doing field spectroscopy or developing instruments. We have instruments on Mars right now, both on Curiosity and on Perseverance. We have some of our team members who are involved, were involved with Kepler, and now with Tess and James Webb, and planning mission, being part of missions. It's always make people smile and they are surprised when I say that the SETI Institute has been part of pretty much all of the Mars missions. The exception would be InSight. This is really where we have nobody collaborating on that. But it's Cassini, it's New Horizon, it's OSIRIS-REx, and seeing the field as well with the SETI search literally blooming right now. It's fantastic because after difficult years, we see a young team that is, gathering momentum, getting more experience and experiment on different telescope, bridging collaboration internationally. This is a great time to be at the Institute, and a great home as well, because we take care of our scientists, and the Institute brings a lot of services to its PI and affiliates. So if you're looking for the search for life in the universe, definitely you want to check us out.
One thing I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit here in terms of the science. It's already been pointed out that when the SETI Institute began, we didn't know about planets around other stars. We assumed they were there. Now we know that at least 60, 70% of all stars that are similar to our own sun have planets in orbits that are similar to the Earth. So there's just plenty of real estate to expect life out there, but we haven't found it yet. And if you look at the speed at which technology to do the kind of search we're doing, the speed at which that's improving, it's improving just as quickly as Moore's law. In other words, it doubles in speed essentially every 3 years. No, every 2 years. Yeah. And that makes it reasonable to say that if this approach that the Institute has of trying to find intelligence elsewhere in the cosmos by trying to eavesdrop on signals, if that makes sense, I think it makes sense, but if it makes sense, then we're likely to score some success by the mid-2030s. So this is not a project for 200 years from now. This is a project for the present.
And Frank, if I'd like to add something to this, and it's not only about SETI, but about the search for life in the universe in general. Not only all of a sudden we have this Copernican revolution, as Bill mentioned, about finding exoplanet, but at the same time, we're making so many progress in our exploration of the solar system and terrestrial analogs here on Earth. We understand a lot more what habitability means. And we know that there is more than just the habitable zone to make life possible. You also have habitable environments. And we also have discovered with the exoplanets that there are new types of planets and types of habitability we didn't understand because we didn't know they existed in the first place. But now we see new planet, super Earth, ancient worlds and others. And those could lead to the discovery of something even broader, life as we don't know it. And so I was going to say the sky is the limit, but literally it is. We have changed our vision of how many worlds can be habitable in the universe, but we also have changed our notion of habitability and habitable zone.
Okay, so that's bring me a very good transition for the next question. I'm going to ask Andy to answer to this one first, since I think he will bring an interesting perspective. So, what is now the biggest challenge for the SETI Institute? What do you think is the most challenging part of the search for life?
Well, I'll start by saying that to confirm what you've been hearing from the other members of the discussion, when I teach about astronomy, whether I'm teaching young people in colleges or I'm teaching retired people, and you try to ask the students what is the most exciting part of your introductory astronomy course, without fail, many of the students will say it's the search for life. It's the question of whether or not we're alone. And I only wish we could answer it before the end of the course, but that's not possible. But I think what Seth said is really important. There are really exciting developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning in ways that we're going to decode signal from noise. That's what the SETI project for looking for signals is all about, finding some narrow signal in the vast cosmic static which comes to us from natural objects. And to be able to do that in the next few years with the help of computers, with the help of artificial intelligence, which after all are good at finding patterns in the noise. That's, I think, the most exciting prospect for the years to come. And I'm delighted that I'm still here to witness it.
We're delighted you're still here as well to provide expertise and to give us also the background that we need sometimes when we do our research. Bill, what do you think as a CEO? What do you think is the biggest challenge for the SETI Institute?
I think we have more opportunities than challenges, frankly. And I, Andy reflected on some of those opportunities, but Seth mentioned the kind of doubling of computational power that's being deployed at this quest every year, but it goes even beyond that, because in addition to doubling computational power, we're doubling the capabilities of the radio telescopes and their feeds and receivers and signal processing as well. We're also using other techniques and looking for other phenomena. We're looking for laser pulses or laser transmissions. We're now also, thanks to machine learning, for example, we are able to, instead of narrowing our search for a particular kind of phenomena, which may or may not be, the phenomena of choice of ET in terms of, say, transmitting information. We look for narrowband radio signals now. As Andy spoke about artificial intelligence and its ability to look for patterns or anomalies, we can, instead of looking for a particular kind of phenomena, we can teach our algorithms to say, look, this is what the radio background looks like. This is what the nature normally looks like. You come and tell us anytime you see anything strange, anything weird that doesn't fit the normal patterns. And again, AI is extraordinarily good at that. So we have increased computational power. We're looking for more phenomena. We're using more instruments. And pretty much now every major radio telescope around the world is at some point or another in its schedule, and in some cases all the time, doing SETI. And again, that's quite new in just the last several years. We have a program on the Very Large Array in New Mexico, using the entire array of their 27 dishes, which had never really been used for SETI before, in spite of the movie Contact. And we're doing what's called commensal observations, or we're just picking up everything in the field of view of that telescope, wherever it's pointed at for its primary science purpose. We're bringing data in on that instrument at a rate of 3 terabytes per second. So, I mean, it's an extraordinary endeavor. And so, not only do we have, as Seth mentioned, the factor of 2 in computational power, we've got a factor of 10 in terms of how many different things that we're looking at and different kinds of technology and approaches. So it's an order of magnitude enhanced over what the endeavor was just a decade ago. And I think, as in terms of our challenges and opportunities, we have to, imagine that which we can't imagine. We have to look for that which we don't know what to look for. We have to imagine life as we don't know it, and try and also develop as many other tools, techniques, modalities, and methods to do the search as possible. And including, back to Nathalie's point, even the search for basic life and early life, which would also give us lots of clues about its evolutionary possibilities. So I see opportunities more than challenges, and I see global collaboration. I guess I would close by saying, in terms of challenges, it would be nice to see NASA get back in the game of funding the search. I think we're getting closer and closer to that. NASA is funding so-called techno-signatures projects, including some of our own. But with their own proof of the ubiquity of planets, it seems to me that there's compelling reason for funding, federal funding, to come back into the search. And so that would be, a challenge or an opportunity I'd like to see fulfilled.
Thank you. Nathalie, do you want to add something on this topic?
The only thing that I'd like to add to that is, just because we are this multidisciplinary institute, we have this opportunity to, and I'm going to say it again, connect dots in a ways that nobody else can do, and look at the same questions like everybody is looking at, but from different perspective. And it is we have this ability here to just, think differently about the search for life in the universe. And we are starting to think about, what could the revolution in astronomy and the revolution in physics and the revolution in neuroscience and etc. They might seem like separate things, but they are all bringing something about our understanding of who we are. And, is there somebody else in the universe? So this is this freedom that we have here to look at not only the same question differently, but also look back and say, hey, we have been now looking at life in the universe, or searching for life in the universe, for a few decades with technology. We have been asking those questions for thousands of years, obviously. But we have accumulated so much data. Is it time now to start reformulating those questions? Are we in the position that we can, ask those questions differently and bring to bear on those new questions, new technology and all the things that we are thinking about at the Institute? And the SETI Institute is really probably one of the best positions in the world to think along those lines and being at the forefront of this search.
Thank you. Seth, do you want to add something on the challenges? You have been doing radio for quite a long time, so we talk about education and outreach too.
Well, yeah, no, but I think people are interested to know, something more about how we do it. They want to know, of course, when are we going to succeed? And nobody can know that. But I've already said that, I bet everybody a cup of coffee, it'll be in the mid-2030s. And so, I've been buying Starbucks stock ready to go on that. But it's not an unreasonable thing. And the reason for that bet is not that I want to get a free cup of coffee. The reason for that bet is that, in fact, the technology, as we've heard over and over now, the technology keeps improving. And by the mid-2030s, if you just look at the numbers, the SETI community will have examined about 1 million star systems, looking for some indication that somebody clever is out there. 1 million star systems. Now, nobody knows how many you have to look at before you find something, but 1 million is a big number. And to me, it doesn't seem like an unreasonable number. I think it's a fairly safe bet that out of every 1 million sun-like star systems out there, there's at least one civilization that's broadcasting signals we could pick up. So that's it. It's more than a technology story. It's also the capability to actually do the search. And a lot of that has to do with things that Bill Diamond, of course, knows much more about than most of us. And that is, funding and support and getting the right people in here and all that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I have a question for the four of you. Let's play this game. You fell asleep now. You wake up in 40 years, right? What do you think?
We'll be lucky if we wake up in 40 years, Frank.
You're going to sleep for 40 years because you have not been sleeping that much. I know some of you. But let's play this game. You fall asleep, we wake up in 40 years. What will be the Institute then? What will have happened? What you want? What you imagine? Let's start with you, Bill.
Interesting question. I'll start by just pointing out some of the fun things or interesting things that happen in 40-year increments. When you think about the Institute starting in 1984, in 1944, the first human-made piece of engineering crossed into space. It crossed the Kármán line into space. It was unfortunately built as a weapon. Initially, it was a V-2 rocket, but nevertheless, human technology for the first time entered space 40 years before the Institute was founded. 40 years before that, it was 1904. And in December of 1903, the Wright brothers made their first flight. So imagine that, the first human flight 40 years later, there's a rocket entering space. 40 years after that, there's the SETI Institute. And in between those two things, humans walk on the moon for the first time. And if you had asked somebody in 1944 whether they thought in 25 years there would be humans on the moon, they would have said, you're absolutely insane. So it's extraordinary how fast and rapidly technology evolves, science evolves, and our capabilities evolve. In some other ways, it's extraordinary how we don't evolve or do smart things. But nevertheless, I think, in 40 years, waking up in 40 years, there will be an institute that's no longer searching for life in the universe, but dealing with life in the universe in terms of there will have been profound discoveries made. They may be the discovery of life in perhaps more basic forms, even perhaps in our own backyard in the solar system, or, biosignatures on nearby planets that are confirmed to be evidence of life on the surface, that the Institute would then be very much involved in missions that are trying to follow up and understand and dig deeper into those discoveries. I think there could well be a discovery in that 40-year time frame of an extraterrestrial civilization with technology. And then, of course, a lot would depend on, whether this was a civilization that was, 10 or 20 light years away or less, or 50 or 100,000 light years away or more. And those would have very different implications in terms of whether or not we could imagine the opportunity to actually have some kind of exchange of information or conversation. But nevertheless, I feel that, waking up 40 years from now, discoveries will have been made that will, let's say, adjust the mission of the Science Institute, the SETI Institute, in terms of the kind of science it's doing. I think the last thing I would say about this is, science is not about the answers in the back of the book, right? It's not about answering questions. It's about asking questions. It's about asking the right questions. And the thing that is really fun and interesting about science, and I think it's a good sign of when science is doing the right thing, is every time you think you answer a question or you do answer a question, you just raise 10 new ones. It's like an exponential expansion of curiosity that happens with each new discovery we make. So if we've made the kinds of profound discoveries I expect to happen in the next 40 years, we'll be even busier 40 years from now.
So we need more scientists.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Seth.
I'm sorry, Frank. Yes, look, this just builds on what has been said, but I think it's worth considering. If you had asked, for example, in Western Europe in 1491, what would be the consequence of finding a couple of continents, right, to the west of us across all this water? People would have offered their opinions, but probably none of them would be right. They couldn't have possibly foreseen what was going to happen. And I think that SETI is very analogous to that. We don't know what it will mean, how society will change if we suddenly discover that there's somebody out there. And as Bill Diamond just said, it depends on how far away they are. If they're close by, we could consider communication. If they're far away, we're not going to be able to communicate. But, it will change our point of view in the same way that discovering the Americas changed the point of view of the Europeans, whether they ever got on a sailing ship or not.
Good. Andy, you want to go with this question?
No, I'd like to start with a more somber thought. I'm very afraid that I'll wake up in 40 years and the Earth will be a place where the weather has run amok, the climate is bad, and there's emergency efforts underway to save our planet. I hope
I share that concern, Andy. I absolutely share that concern.
But if all goes well, I'd like to wake up in 40 years with the following dream, which is that we've received more than one message. We've received messages from several civilizations, and our question is, whom do we answer? Do we answer, and whom do we answer? I think it's a really amazing question that we as an entire species will then need to answer. We get a message, and the message may be not what we expect, or it may reveal a civilization very different from our own. We're a very young civilization, which is just being able to do these things. Do we answer? Do we reveal our position? We call this the what we do after success question. And there are anthropologists and philosophers and others looking at this question. How do we respond if we are not alone? And having wise thoughts and wise discussions with a wide variety of people around the world will be one of the most exciting things that the Institute will do once we succeed.
No, very good. Thank you. Nathalie, you wake up in 40 years.
I wake up in
Your hair's
40
longer.
You know, I've heard a lot of thoughts that I share. I would say, going with what Andy was just saying, that obviously the SETI Institute is not isolated in space, so its future really much depends on the future of our planet and society. But what I want to say is that the SETI Institute has a role to play in this, and I've been advocating for this for a long time now, is just because we only have one example of life right now. The questions that we're asking when we're searching for life, out there are really questions about ourselves. When you look at our question, our experiment, etc., everything is very anthropocentric, but this has some good value, which is that, in fact, whether you are searching for ET or you're searching for microbes, it always gives you some type of answer or information about who you are, your place on that planet, and how you need to deal with the planet. What does it mean? Coevolution of life on an environment, habitability, habitable zone. How do you preserve this? We are learning a lot by searching for ET and for microbes out there about ourselves. So I think that the SETI Institute, by its multidisciplinarity, has an incredible role to play about first showing that connection, then putting into action, into educating the public, sharing those notions that we are one with our planet. And it's the same thing for ET. They will have to go through the same thing. They are co-evolving with their environment. So if they met the same kind of problem, how did they deal with it? Did they deal with it? Is there a filter? And I know that Bill is now nodding, because this is some question that is really dear to his heart and should be at the heart of everybody. But we have a fundamental responsibility to showing how much the search for life in the universe is in fact a mirror for our place here, And the other thing that I wanted to share is that I might have a little bit of a different view. As you said, Seth, it's really difficult for somebody in 1491 to predict the implications of discovering the Americas. But there is something we can see coming right now. Science is changing at an incredibly fast pace. And I was mentioning earlier on, quantum physics. And this one is the one that I keep an eye on, because it seems to be meshing with a lot of other disciplines that may well, in 5-10 years from now, completely revolutionize what we know about ourselves, what we know about the universe, and how to search for life in the universe. It may be that 40 years from now, the SETI Institute will still be searching for life in the universe and ET, but maybe with many different tools.
Yep.
Yeah.
I share this as well as an idea of the evolution of the technology. Just to go back to the general answer to this question, so we will be still, in 40 years, we will still be called the SETI Institute, but we will be the study for extraterrestrial intelligence, not the search, based on what you said. We will have found life somewhere. We will be basically leading the effort of understanding this life, communicating with it, or with him, or with them, if they are intelligent. Okay.
So it's you're right, Franck. It's we don't want to lose the brand. You know, SETI's a pretty powerful brand, but we just changed the acronym.
Okay. We had a lot of questions, and I've been basically answering to asking questions related to the question we get from the audience. I want you to talk a bit about one of the part of the SETI Institute, which is to share the knowledge with the world. It's part of our mission. So we have an outreach education program for that. Can you tell us, all of you, what you think, how you think we could inspire the next generation to become SETI researcher, to become astronomer, to become scientist? How are we gonna do this, basically? Nathalie, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, there are so many ways, Frank, and you know something about this. I mean, with your telescopes, you go everywhere, and you have little kids or elderly people looking through the telescope, and all of a sudden discovering, stars and nebula and planets, and it's fairly easy. I think that we are very lucky in that the search for life is so fascinating to everybody that we should use this as a tool to explain the world, explain complex things like math and physics, etc. But you can do education outreach by getting into school, which is what PIs do, giving public lectures, writing books. We all do this. I think at this point in time, what we are faced with still is that there is a mistrust in science in general, and I'm not going to say, about the search for life in the universe. On the contrary, the search for life in the universe might be a way that makes people feel comfortable with science for some reason. The public is very, very, cautious when you have climate scientists talking to them. And that's really bad because this is science, this is hard data, they should listen to them. But for some reason, it has to be political. We have the chances that politics actually rejected the SETI Institute a little while ago. So we are independent and we make people dream. So we have a responsibility being interdisciplinary to continue educating people through all these different means and telling them not only about the search for life, but why does it matter, to preserve the balance between life and environment if you want to find life in the universe? We were talking about that a minute ago. So when you are searching for life in the universe, you need to understand climate. You need to understand geology. You need to understand all sorts of physics. You need to understand what makes a planet rotate in the habitable zone, for instance. These are fun ways you can engage little kids to retired people, as Andy mentioned very early on. So, to tell you how we entice young people, I think that first they are coming to us. SETI is a brand that makes people dream. And we are very lucky to receive these letters from young kids saying, this is all that I wanted to do. It's my dream to come to the SETI Institute or to search for life. How can I do that? But at the same time, I think we should think about the ways to start reaching those we have a harder time to reach for many reasons. That could be societal reasons, or that could be, political reasons, etc. And I think we will need that, especially now.
I think that Andrew Fraknoi might actually have something to say about this because he encounters more young people than I think any of us. Yeah. And maybe he can say something about the durability of the interest of life beyond Earth.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Seth. And I was going to answer the question by referring to you, but I'll do that in a moment. I feel like, as Seth says, that this is something that young people are very interested in, and many teachers are not that good at answering, not because they're not wonderful teachers, but this is not something that a teacher learns in the normal course of their education. So one area where we can be really helpful is to bring this information to teachers, to college instructors who may not know enough about it. And there are projects at the Institute to do that. And then also it's to do public outreach, as we're doing with social media. A few decades ago, thanks to Seth and others, we did something called SETICon, a huge weekend gathering like Comic-Con, where 1,000 people came, including many young people, to learn about the work of the Institute. And I just want to mention that Seth Shostak and Molly Bentley have this amazing nationally syndicated radio show called Big Picture Science, which has been sponsored by the Institute very wisely. And they are able to bring all aspects of science, but many of the things we're talking about, to a very wide radio audience. So using the media, using schools, doing as much outreach as possible, we're very lucky to have a topic which is so sexy that you don't have to sell it.
Thank you. So, Bill, do you want to say final words about inspiring the next generation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I mean, I think that I will say first, though, it's not about I want everybody to become a SETI scientist or a research scientist doing the kind of work we do, or a scientist at all. But here's what I would like to see. I would like to see everybody on the planet be science literate, at least have a basic understanding of the scientific truths of, natural phenomena and how nature and the universe and the world work as a physical system, and to navigate their way through life with curiosity and with the desire to understand what's really going on, and to be guided by, truthful, factual information gained through scientific and engineering types of endeavors, and not to navigate through life based on conspiracy theories and bogus science and mistruths, etc. It's very important for the survival of the planet that we have a population globally, no matter what walk of life they have, no matter what undertaking they aspire to, because we need everybody doing everything, but to have a scientifically literate, well-informed, logically driven society, I think is essential for our survival. So what is our role there? As my colleagues have referred to here, one of the things that is wonderful about the work we do, and more broadly space science and exploration, is it is a fascinating, inspiring notion and concept, for what I refer to as kids of all ages. There's very few people you ever meet who aren't at least curious about, interested in, or fascinated in some way about space science, exploration, astronauts, aliens. All of this provides this amazingly powerful contextual framework in which to talk about and teach science. Because if you start talking about space and astronauts and planets and spaceships and aliens, you've got their attention. And once you've got their attention, you can go anywhere you want, and you can teach all kinds of subjects, and you have a contextual framework that is now friendly and interesting instead of sort of, abstract and difficult to grab hold of. And I think, abstract conceptual education for scientific things, works for like 10% of the people, like the people who work at the Institute, but doesn't work for everybody. So give people a framework and a contextual background for something inspiring and interesting and fascinating, and there's no end to what you can do. And this is why sharing the work we do is baked into the mission of the Institute. It's what drives our education programs. It's what drives our outreach. We want to share the work we do with the world because we feel we have a responsibility to do that. Much of our work is NASA funded, and therefore taxpayers pay for it. We have the obligation to give back and to show people what we're doing. But also, I think we have an opportunity and an obligation to leverage what we're doing to, advance humankind in a positive direction, and to use this platform. Somebody wrote in the chat, a SETI school, a school for SETI, that would be great. Something along those lines. Absolutely true. But I think that we have this fundamentally fascinating line of work that we can leverage to help teach science and have people be more scientifically literate, maybe more interested in different kinds of STEM careers and opportunities, to think more positively about their own potential futures and what they can do. So I think it's incumbent upon us and compelling on us to do that. And that's why, our education team and our outreach teams, they have such measurable objectives, because we've said once everybody on the whole planet is scientifically literate and understands and knows about the SETI Institute, then their job is done. Well, I think we have job security for a while.
Thank you very much, everybody. Very nice last words. on a lighter note, we're going to have an event for our anniversary, I'm assuming, Bill. Are we invited?
Yes, we have a big event coming up next Wednesday, the 20th, which is the actual date, November 20th, 1984, that the corporate seal was created for the SETI Institute, and it was established as a nonprofit 501c3 in the state of California. So on that very day, next week, 40 years later, we're having a party in Menlo Park. And if you're in the Bay Area and you're interested in attending, go to our website, www.seti.org. And, you scroll down from the top of the main page, you'll see a place where you can register for tickets. And if you are interested, you probably want to do it quickly, because I think it's selling out and filling up pretty fast. But it's going to be a fun event. We'll, of course, be doing other things. Actually, I'm delighted to share the news that Nathalie and myself and one of our radio astronomers, Wael Farah, and our director of education and outreach, Simon Steele, will be on KQED Forum. This is KQED is an NPR station here in San Francisco that has a nationally syndicated program called Forum. We're talking about the 40th anniversary of the Institute, a little bit like we're doing here today. So that's going to be exciting. There'll be lots of different activities going on. We're preparing a new special edition of our magazine Explore that many of our followers over the years are familiar with. Seth has been, one of the primary forces behind Explore from its inception. So a special 40th anniversary edition, lots of fun things going on, and we'd love to share, the party and the fun with everybody. And go to our website and you can sign up for our newsletter and communicate with us and share your thoughts about the future and the past with us and have some fun. And I do also want to point out that
one question before there will be a cake.
Oh yeah, I saw that question. Of course there'll be a cake. At least I think there'll be a cake. We'll make sure.
So what would be the shape of the cake? Would it be an alien spaceship, or would it be an antenna?
I'm not authorized to share that information.
You're the boss, so you should know. You should know that and take a decision, an executive decision on the shape of the cake.
Yeah, well, the decision may have been made, but I can't share that ahead of time.
Okay.
Above my pay grade. But I also want to highlight the fact that my hair isn't actually pink, though I'm not beyond trying various things to highlight my appearance, which needs work. But I do have some fun colored lights above me that you can see up there, and okay. I can change them different colors. They can become sort of burgundy if the San Francisco 49ers do well, or I can make them orange if the Giants do well. I'm not turning them green until we make the discovery. So if you see the green lights, that would be the sign. That's it.
Good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Nathalie, Andy, Seth, Bill, and everybody in the back that's been taking care of this program, Rebecca and Beth. I hope I did not forget anybody, but thank you very much for watching us, for supporting the SETI Institute. As Bill mentioned, visit our website, seti.org. You can subscribe to get our newsletter, The Journey. You can also join our social media. We are on every platform. If you want to support us, you can also make simply a comment on this video, a thumb up, saying that how much you like or dislike what you heard about. I'm pretty sure a lot of you enjoyed this conversation. You saw the passion and the positivity of all our researcher, educator, and outreach at the SETI Institute. And that's one of the reasons I love working in this place. That's basically refreshing to work in a place where you can speak about aliens on a daily basis. So thanks to all of you, and see you in 40 years for another program like this to talk about aliens.
Thanks everybody for joining us today.
Take care.